Should activists be targeting famous art to draw attention to their causes? That is being debated following a recent attack on the Rokeby Venus at London's National Gallery. Two young activists from the group Just Stop Oil strolled up to the several hundred-year-old masterpiece and began smashing the protective glass with small emergency rescue hammers, with them then turning to the crowd gathered in the gallery and saying,
"Politics is failing us. Politics failed women in 1914. If millions will die due to new oil and gas licensing, millions! If we love history, if we love art, and if we love our families, we must just stop oil."
And what they're referring to there is a previous act of activism-driven vandalism against this painting specifically. Back in 1914, the Rokeby Venus was the target of Mary Richardson, a suffragette furious about the arrest of a fellow activist, Emmeline Pankhurst. She marched into the gallery with a meat cleaver and hacked at the painting, leaving 7 deep slashes on the back of Venus and saying, "I have tried to destroy the picture of the most beautiful woman in mythological history as a protest against the government for destroying Mrs. Pankhurst, who is the most beautiful character in modern history." And Mary actually did such significant damage to the painting that the museum closed for 2 weeks to repair it, and she was given a 6-month prison sentence. However, when she got to prison, she staged a hunger strike and was released after a few weeks. And these, of course, are just 2 examples, one very recent and one very old, of times when activists have targeted a famous artwork as a way of drawing attention to their cause. And there have been countless groups fighting for countless different causes that have chosen masterworks as their targets to spread the message. But most recently, the group using this method most prominently is Just Stop Oil, which is a climate activist group calling upon the UK government to stop licensing any new oil, gas, or coal projects, with some of their most well-known stunts including throwing tomato soup at Vincent van Gogh's sunflowers in the London National Gallery, and gluing themselves to the wall while speaking about the value of art versus life. Also, another time, an activist glued his head to Johannes Vermeer's girl with a pearl earring in The Hague, with another pouring soup on him. And another group from Just Stop Oil glued themselves to a copy of Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper, believed to have been painted by 2 of his pupils housed at the Royal Academy of Art in London, and that after spray painting no new oil on the wall beneath the piece. And so these protests have raised the question, is this an effective way to raise awareness or rally support for a cause? Really, there hasn't been a clear-cut answer, with even places like ABC discussing the matter with several experts, which included Elise Van Susteren, a general and forensic psychiatrist who has researched how climate change has affected the mental health of young people. She said that these activists are not trying to change the minds of climate change deniers, but to spur those already sympathetic to the cause to realize the severity of the problem and take action. She says that determining the efficacy of the protest is a simple math problem. What is the cost and benefit of the action? And with that, going on to say that because Just Stop Oil is targeting works protected by glass, the cost isn't very high, but the benefit of continued media attention is noteworthy. There's actually been experiments conducted by researchers regarding the methods that activists use and whether they garner support or actually hinder the cause. In one set, researchers showed people descriptions of protests and measured their support for the protesters and separately the cause. While some read about moderate protests like marches, other participants read about more extreme or violent ones. And participants reported a lower level of emotional connection to the protesters who took part in more extreme actions. But the effect on the support for the cause was mixed. Then another experiment took advantage of the negative framing the one publication used when discussing the Van Gogh incident. And they found that the public support for a cause or the demands of protesters isn't actually linked to their support of the protesters themselves. Meaning there is some truth to the saying, I agree with your cause, but I don't like your methods. And so ultimately, the answer to the question of, is this an effective protest? It comes down to the person actually viewing the protest. And there has been extensive discussion on both sides of the argument, especially following the tomato soup on sunflowers incident. In fact, the topic of art and protest was even discussed by a panel at the Art for Tomorrow conference in Florence, Italy, following the demonstration. One of the speakers there was Claire Farrell, co-founder of the UK-based international protest group Extinction Rebellion, and she defended the protest, saying that it drew the necessary public attention to a serious issue, and adding, some soup on some glass on the front of a painting is the very least that people could be doing to draw attention, to bring alarm. However, some have also argued the actions of Just Stop Oil members aren't aimed at the people who actually deserve it. And leading that argument is naturally museums, with the Association of Art Museum Directors saying in a statement, art crosses boundaries of time and place to underscore the creativity that people everywhere have expressed, and they represent our shared humanity. Attacking art for any purpose undermines those common bonds. Such protests are misdirected, and the ends do not justify the means. But according to Phoebe Plummer, one of the activists involved in the tomato soup display, the organization has also taken direct action against oil companies, not just painting. With Phoebe saying in an interview with NPR, we climbed up on tankers to stop them moving. We formed blocks in front of oil depots so none of the tankers could come and leave. We had incredibly brave people dig tunnels under oil terminals so the roads had to be closed off and staying in these tunnels for weeks sometimes. We went to petrol stations and smashed smashed up petrol pumps and destroyed the machines that are destroying us. And the group made the decision to target the famous painting in order to grab attention, with Phoebe saying, "So our action in particular was a media-grabbing action to get people talking, not just about what we did, but why we did it." And actually, to that end, they have been successful, with there being countless headlines and op-eds and discussions online about the group and their form of protest. So with this being such a divisive issue, I gotta now pass the question off to you. Where do you stand on this?